218.7. The third word Bhagavan uses to describe the self is aprameya. Though translated as incomprehensible or indeterminable, the word literally means that which is not subject to any means of knowledge. No theory of knowledge or philosophy can describe it fully. There are several Shrutis to this effect. One example is from Katha Upanishad 3.12. Naiva vacha na manasa praptum shakyo na chakshusha. He who or that which cannot be reached by word, mind or eye. 218.8. Bhashya. Question.
ननु आगमेन आत्मा परिच्छिद्यते प्रत्यक्षादिना च पूर्वम्.
Translation. Is not the self comprehended by the scriptures and prior to that by direct perception? 218.9. Bhashya. Reply.
न आत्मनः स्वतः सिद्धत्वात्. सिद्धे हि आत्मनि प्रमातरि प्रमित्सोः प्रमाण अन्वेषणा भवति. न हि पूर्वम् इत्थम् अहम् इति आत्मानम् अप्रमाय पश्चात् प्रमेय परिच्छेदाय प्रवर्तते. न हि आत्मा नाम कस्यचित् अप्रसिद्धो भवति. शास्त्रं तु अन्त्यं प्रमाणम् अतत् धर्माध्यारोपण मात्र निवर्तकत्वेन प्रमाणत्वम् आत्मनि प्रतिपद्यते न तु अज्ञातार्थज्ञापकत्वेन. तथा च श्रुतिः यद् साक्षात् अपरोक्षात् ब्रह्म य आत्मा सर्वान्तरः इति. यस्माद् एवं नित्यः अविक्रियः च आत्मा तस्माद् युध्यस्व युद्धाद् उपरमं मा कार्षीः इत्यर्थः. न हि अत्र युद्धकर्तव्यता विधीयते. युद्धे प्रवृत्तः एव हि असौ शोकमोह प्रतिबद्धः तूष्णीम् आस्ते. तस्य कर्तव्य प्रतिबन्धापनयन मात्रं भगवता क्रियते. तस्माद् युध्यस्व इति अनुवाद मात्रं न विधिः.
Translation. It is not so. The Atman is self-inherent. It is because of the inherent nature of the self, because it is there, that the inquirer is able to inquire. Without knowing I am like this, he cannot start his inquiry. The self is not unknown to anyone. The scriptures are the final authority not because they make unknown things known, but by removing the attributes superimposed on the self. Shruti would say, that which is Brahman is not indirect. It is the self that is within all. Since the self is eternal and unchanging, you fight. That means do not desist from battle. Here, the call to fight is not an injunction. He who had come to fight was sitting idle with sorrow and delusion, and Bhagavan was only removing these obstacles to duty. Therefore you fight. It is an exhortation and not an injunction. 218.10. Explanation. How can you say that no theory can explain it when the scriptures contain teachings about the self? Moreover, Veda is the last word on such things and the final theory, and what comes in the final theory would have been experienced by direct perception or by deduction before. These are the doubts raised. 218.11. The answer to the first query is that the self is inherent and self-evident. It is the basis for the feeling of I. It is there in all beings. What to say then of humans? Without the feeling of I, no one does anything. There is no need of any theory to know this. All theories are based on words, but the self cannot be expressed in words. Therefore, it would be incorrect to say the scriptures describe it. The teachings of Veda only point to the self and advise the readers to remove the cover of ignorance which hides it. This cover is nothing but the attributes we have superimposed on the self. About each attribute, you have to ask the question, is this the self? You will soon come to the answer, not this. That is why Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says in 236, Neti neti nahyedasmaditi netanyat paramasti. There is no greater theory than not this, not like this. 2:18:12. Then what is the purpose of scriptures? They are there to caution you about mistaking the superimpositions for the reality. We can trace all our ills to this mistake. We have seen in 2:18:6 how the body is a superimposition, probably the most common one. There are many others like the mind, senses, intellect, and the life force. Each of these has its own qualities, and these impinge on the life of the individual. A person may be unhappy thinking his body is not strong or his intellect is weak. Gradually, he would attribute on the self the qualities of these superimpositions. When we see a piece of red-hot iron, we attribute the qualities of fire to the iron. It is like that only. The result of the transfer of attributes is unhappiness and suffering. Little does he know that he is the self, the embodiment of bliss. On the other end of the scale, he would attribute the qualities of the self, like everlasting bliss, to the superimposition. It is like taking the red-hot iron itself to be the fire. These superimpositions are only the covers of the self. It is like the electric bulb covered by layers of colored paper, virtually blocking the light. With each layer, you have to ask the question, is this the light? And finding not this, remove it. As layer after layer is removed, the light shines more till it reaches its full glory. That is Ananda or bliss. The scriptures help you to do this, but they will not be able to tell you what it is. As Shiva Mahimna Stotram sings in Sloka 2, even Veda would recoil from self with awe, saying not this. Adadvyavrityayam chakitam abhidhatte shrutirapi. What even the Shruti will speak of with fear as not this. 2:18:13. It is like this that the scriptures get authority, not by making the unknown self known. It is like a medicine that helps you regain your health, which has been covered by disease. Medicine did not create health. It only helped to remove the cover. In the oft-repeated analogy of the night traveler mistaking the rope for a snake, the advent of light did not create the rope. It only removed the attribute of the snake, falsely superimposed on the rope. This is the role of the scriptures. It is to convey this idea that Shankaracharya quotes from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 3:4:1. Yat Sakshad Abarokshad Brahma Ya Atma Sarvantaraha. That which is real Brahman is not indirect. It is the self within all. Brahman is neither direct nor indirect. If it is direct, it has to be perceived by the senses like other things we see, hear, touch, smell, or taste. If it is indirect, one should be able to deduce it by thinking. As already stated, it is self-evident and inherent, therefore not indirect. 2:18:14. The concluding line of the sloka, therefore fight, is not to be taken as a general call to war. Seeing the possibility of such a misinterpretation, the Acharya makes it clear that it is not a prescription but an approval. Arjuna has come to the battlefield after going around various kingdoms and garnering support from the kings. He has already announced his battle readiness and blown his conch shell. But his sense of duty gets clouded by delusion and he forgets his prime duty or Mukhya Dharma. See paras 115 to 117 of volume 1. It is to remove this obstruction to duty that Bhagavan calls him to fight. The call is for all of us to choose the path of righteousness and to achieve our goal. 218.15 Bhashya.
शोकमोहादि संसार कारण निवृत्त्यर्थं गीताशास्त्रं न प्रवर्तकम् इति एतस्य अर्थस्य साक्षिभूते ऋचौ आनिनाय भगवान्। यत्तु मन्यसे युद्धे भीष्मादयः मया हन्यन्ते अहम् एव तेषां हन्ता इति एषा बुद्धिः मृषा एव ते। कथम्?
Translation. The scripture of Gita is for removing the sorrows and delusions that cause the samsara. See 210a1. Not for acting on them. Bhagavan cites two mantras testifying to this idea. You think Bhishma and others will be killed in battle and you will be their killer. This thinking of yours is incorrect. As to how it is, listen. 218.16 Explanation. The next two slokas are based on two mantras from Katha Upanishad, which is part of Krishna Yajurveda. They show the pointlessness of sorrow and delusion. It is these that cause all the suffering in this world, leading to the repeated cycle of births and deaths. The purpose of Gita is to help remove them and ultimately to end this cycle.